So as a parent, I mean, I don't think there's anything that would scare a parent more than something happening to their child and losing a child, and you've had to go through that. But the truth is that all of us as parents, the moment we decide to become a parent, we open our hearts wide. As I once read it, to spend the rest of our lives with our hearts beating outside our bodies. It's just the journey of parenting is about just being vulnerable, isn't it? In one way, shape or form.
Yes, and with Connor, there was, I mean, when he was diagnosed, we lived in complete fear. And that is such a powerful emotion. But then you just, every day is what it is, and you have to accept every day for what it is. And at Connor's funeral, we were, I mean, this sounds, I don't know what this sounds like, but he actually had the most beautiful funeral. Mm-hmm. My husband and I and his brother Nick and sister Hannah, we all spoke. We all wanted to speak. And it was and writing what I was going to say. And that's the other thing too, when you have a child who's unwell and you know they're not going to live, you lie there and think, what am I going to say at my own child's funeral? Which is something no parent should ever have to do. But I remember in writing it and thinking about it, and all through Connor's illness was thinking, what could we have done differently? And that was him being philosophical to say, there's nothing. You know, when I said, backing up, at one point in Connor's illness, I said to him, doesn't this make you mad? And people would often say that to us, like, well, I don't know how you're coping, or I'm not sure people understand, you don't actually have a choice. You know, I don't know how you're doing this, or I don't know how you're doing that. Well, me either. And believe me, I wasn't thinking that this is what I was going to be doing, but things just happen. But Connor, I said to him, doesn't this make you angry? And he said, Mom, what's the point? Yeah. It was always going to happen. It's nobody's fault, which is different as well. If it had been a horrible accident, or if he had been a victim of crime, or if something terrible had happened. But this, being this sort of medical mystery, really was nobody's fault. And at his funeral, when talking about him, and I kept thinking about this too, what could we have done differently? And I said that, you know, the day he was born, when the nurse, and he was so beautiful too. You know, he was 9'9", he was a big baby, and they kept telling me how beautiful he was. And it was a natural birth, so believe me, I felt the delivery. And when they handed him to me, it was that just, you know, that overwhelming joy. And of course, totally, I was scared, totally unknown. The labor was terrible, so what was mother going to bring, I was not sure. But at the moment, I was just so overcome. And I said at the funeral, and I still believe this, if the nurse had handed him to me and said, this is your newborn son, this is what's going to happen to him in 17 and a half years, I would have just looked at him and said, bring it on. Because that's part of being a parent as well, is, you know, sort of warts and all. You know, when wonderful things happen, and people do love to celebrate wonderful things, I think it's a natural part of people wanting to just, because there's a lot of things that aren't great and wonderful. I mean, that's just sort of the reality. And you know, when we didn't know what he had, I went on the Beyond Blue, which is a depression website in Australia, and I was reading symptoms for depression, because we have had other family members who were young and were struggling. And I thought, well, this is also something that really is often outside of your control, and maybe this is what's happening. Yeah. And I was reading through all of the signs of depression, and he was lying on the couch, and he said, Mom, I'm not sad, I'm tired. And I thought, okay. And I said, but you're not feeling, you know, overwhelmed or this? He goes, I'm not feeling any of that. I'm actually really tired. And when he was diagnosed, and we had this most amazing outpouring of support, and we did, the community just rallied, and they've continued to rally, and it's really beautiful. And I will actually say to people, sometimes it's hard to accept that. It's hard to accept people wanting to do things for you. But I just let that happen, because it actually was really nice. And sometimes that is hard to accept all of that. But I thought that was an important part of Connor's legacy. I wanted him to be known and for people to understand this amazing child whose life was about to be cut terribly short. But I had said to my husband, I wonder if Connor's diagnosis was depression, if we would be getting the same response. And I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have.
You know, I think that's such an important point. I have a brother who had developed schizophrenia in his early 20s and became incredibly unwell with it. And there's so much shame around mental illness. There's so much shame and stigma around it that people don't want to talk about it. You know, he didn't want people to know about it. And there is such a different reaction to it. It's like a deficiency in who you are as distinct from you have an illness.
I know.
And I think, yeah, they're very,
but I'm
true.
I'm hoping people, I feel like people slowly are getting better about that as well. And I feel that, and that's the other part of being a parent, whatever is presented, then you as a parent, well, you just have to deal with it and my personality is to make the best of it. As a mom, I would always say to my kids, always, when something terrible would happen. My kids loved Steve Irwin, you know, the crocodile.
Yep. As did mine. As did pretty much every kid.
We had like days of really, that was probably their first loss as little, especially Connor and Nick. They just couldn't believe that this terrible thing had happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we talked about it. And I said then, and I still say, more things go right than wrong. If you go through a normal day of things that almost happened, accidents or terrible things that almost and are averted, those would far outweigh the times when something terrible happens. And maybe that's why it is so magnified, because it is an unusual occurrence. So, but that's, so trying to be positive.
And I think, you know, something I've written about a lot and talked about is what we focus on expands in our reality. And when we only focus on all that's wrong and all that we don't have or all that we may be losing, it not only amplifies those things and can make us just feel that much more depressed or negative, or angry or resentful, but it keeps us from being present to all the wonderful things. And your story of just the community rallying and the love you were surrounded by during Connor's illness and ever since his death, you know, just to be present to the gift in that. And
well, and my husband always seems better at these things. These things seem to be, well, and maybe it's just natural, but this telling yourself how you want to look at things and feel about things is very powerful, and something I actually several times through his illness had this thought within myself. And here's an example. So Connor was 17 turning 18, so his friends were getting their driver's license. I had sat in that car with him holding the book, and in Victoria you have to have 120 hours.
Yeah.
Connor, I think his last driving was 97 or 98 hours. So
I had nearly there.
So his friends are getting their driver's license. His friends are going to formal. He went to formal, but injured. I mean, post all this, unwell. They were starting to talk about uni, schoolies, which is sort of the spring break. You know, that was something he was so looking forward to. All those things were taken, and I remember feeling, I don't know if jealous is the right word or it's not fair. It wasn't fair. But then I thought, these are Connor's friends who actually love him. And I thought, I can be envious and feeling cheated, and then that's going to spill over into our relationship with his friends and their parents. And I actually don't want that to happen. I actually think these young kids, losing Connor was the worst thing that had happened to them. And of course, us as his parents, we could say, well, worse for us, but actually terrible for everybody. So I had this paradigm shift. I remember going, I am going to not be jealous or envious or feel bad or all those emotions. I'm actually going to be happy because, and genuinely, I am happy. So these kids have stayed a big part of our life, and that's been really special.
But there was a conscious choice there too. Like you did
100%.
sit there. You could have gone the other way, and so understandable to have, because none of us are immune to jealousy or envy, and it would have been easy to have sat in that space of it, and then it would have festered and acted out in all sorts of ways.
There was one other time that is sort of then what's happened the post. So Connor we knew he was dying. Listen, everybody was telling us he was dying. And yes, there is denial. And they say you're in denial, and you think, I'm not in denial, but actually you are in denial, because how could something so terrible happen to somebody who just so recently was so healthy? And how could this actually be? And I'd wake up in the morning after not a great night of sleep and go, was that a really bad nightmare? And I would lie there for about a minute and go, no, I've got my unwell son who can't get out of bed on his own, who only has a very short time left. But nearing the end, he had some terrible seizures, and he was taken to the hospital. And we had tried, a chemo, and we had tried this drug, Avastin. And, at this stage, you're really just clutching at straws and hoping for miracles, but actually knowing there probably aren't any, but you just feel like it feels better trying to do something versus nothing.
The alternative is you give in to despair.
I know.
And
somebody did say, where there's life, there's hope. And I was like, I knew the hope wasn't really there, but there was love. Where there's life, there's love, for sure.
Yeah.
And Connor had that until his last dying breath, 100%. But in the hospital, doctor after doctor, I think they were trying to tell me, your son's dying. And at the end of this terrible day, where he had all these seizures and was still having them, I just wanted to wear a badge that would say, my son is dying. My son may die, but he will never be dead. Or I had this very strong feeling, and it was like almost like out of, yes, I know he's dying, but you don't understand. Like, his spirit is so massive, and he himself is such a beautiful person that even though he might be gone, I'm not going to let him die. It was that sort of defiance.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what your spiritual beliefs are, or your faith is, but I subscribe to the belief that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. Like, these are our earth suits that we're wearing, and not everyone believes that our spirits go on, but I really believe that. And I think what you've just shared to me is just this knowing that the spirit, the essence of who this human being is, it doesn't die.
It does not die. I can tell you, 2 years and a bit on. And I also have this weird thing that this sounds weird too. It's like sometimes when I go somewhere and I see young people, it's almost like I'm looking for Connor. I know that sounds weird, but if he, in my mind and in the things that I'm doing, I know I'm not, I always, when I talk like this, I think, people are going to think, well, she is a little crazy. And okay, well, maybe we're all a little crazy.
And that's, you know what? And if some people think you're a bit crazy, frankly, that's...
And I know some of it's coping, but I get places, and I can feel him. And it's almost like I can almost see him. And and sometimes I think I could almost picture him,
being there,
yes,
in the crowd.
Because that's how alive, I know he's not alive, but I guess what an impact.
But it speaks, one, to the love you have for him and the connection, but two, his spirit is so alive in you that it feels like he is still, at times he comes in as part of your journey, and he's still there.